Hello there, how are you all doing this week? It is great to be back with another video. Now, if it is your first time here, I will just let you know the link in the description is for the full series, and as well as that, down there I've got links for every single song used in the episode. After last week's shenanigans at Guns Unlimited putting several extra grey hairs on my head, I decided this week it was time to do something a little more chilled. So I want to focus on my soft skills. I want to get as many of them leveled up as possible. I'm going to get my metalworking up and online and much more. In order to do that, I am going to need some skill books. Now, Build 42 has made it a little bit more awkward to get your hands on skill books. One great place to get them though is the post office. They have vans outside quite often, usually with skill books. So I head down to the post office, see a few vans, and deal with the immediate resistance. The main book I was looking for here was Welding Level 1, but I didn't find it. I do want to point out as well that I've got this little bench outside my farming house. This is so I can read books without getting boredom. The following morning when I'm reading, I hear a helicopter event, and because I'm outside, I do have to confront that. So much for having a chilled week. I left the car engine running overnight so it would act as kind of like a zombie trap and attract them. And it did work pretty effectively, only a couple were drawn to the door. I didn't want to fight them all right now because as you can see I'm quite badly fatigued and I do have some exhaustion. So I left the rest of them until the next morning. A few of them had managed to get in the compound, but thankfully they didn't do any permanent damage. I checked the field around the back of the base as well, as that seemed to be where they were coming from, before I moved on to deal with those at the car. And now I don't want to focus too heavily on the combat this week, as we did have plenty of that last time round. The big focus for me today was going to be levelling up foraging. Over the next couple of days I wanted to get that up to level 8 so that I could effectively forage and get the items I needed. So to get that done, the main tips I've got: if you do it when you're hungry, you've got 50% more chance of finding food. The foodstuffs tend to be worth more experience, so it helps you level a lot quicker. And as well as that, if you hold the right mouse button so you're actually in aim mode, you get 33% more stuff. So while foraging is a bit of a grind, if you do those two things, it can reduce the grind time and get your levels up quickly. As well as that, with any skill that you do want to level, you want to make sure you're reading those skill books and getting that experience buff. A lot of this month was actually spent sat on that sofa just reading skill books. The next few days were spent foraging heavily. As well as that, I got my first aid level up. Now, first aid is one of the easiest skills to level. All you've got to do is stand on some smashed glass, pair of tweezers, pull the glass out of your feet over and over again. Make sure you've got that skill buff. It's that easy to level on multiplayer servers, it tends to be the first skill that I do gold bar. On day 41, I'd hit level 6 first aid. And this is quite a good milestone. Now, the higher you level your first aid, the longer it takes for your bandages to get dirty. This is very exploitable. If you use sterilised bandages and you pay attention to your health screen and you take them off before they become dirty, you will be essentially refreshing the bandage and creating an infinite loop of sterilisation. In the evening, I started work with my mechanics grind. Now, a lot of people, when they try and level up mechanics, they'll find the car they can work on, they'll do jobs that they can be successful on, and that's all they'll do. Now, this is really ineffective because you can only get one experience pump every 24 hours for successfully completing a job. What's far more useful and levels it much quicker is to get a heavy car or a sports car and keep failing a job, and then you can get multiple experience pumps off one single part of the vehicle and you can just keep on wrenching until you get your levels. Now, if I had to pick my favourite thing about Build 42, I would say it's the way that it combines all the skills and the progression into a much more streamlined and sensible experience. The reason I've been out foraging isn't just for the food, you know, it's to get the clay, to build the clin, to get the metalworking online. And another important factor in that is welding. So I go out and I try and level up welding. Now, as I mentioned, it is so important to have the skill books. I had welding 2, 3, 4 and 5. I did not have welding 1. So it took a bit longer than I'd have wanted it to, and I had to hard grind that skill. The best thing to do to grind the skill is to go out and to disassemble these car wrecks. Now, I know Build 42 stops you disassembling stuff from experience, but that's only tiles. It doesn't apply to electronics that you disassemble, and it certainly doesn't apply to these car wrecks. They are an absolute goldmine, not just for the welding experience, but the resources that they spit out are going to be essential for leveling metalworking when the time comes. Now, I start the grind at the scrapyard just over from my base, but there's a couple of other great spots around Irvington. There is the scrapyard behind the one of the gas stations, and as well as that, just to the northwest, there is a huge scrapyard, absolutely stacked out with wrecks for you to disassemble to get all the experience and all the supplies you're going to need for metalworking. With the metalworking supplies ready, I made the final push to forage enough clay. One thing you'll find that comes with experience on this game is you know the next steps before you're going to take them. So while I needed the clay to get the clin built, to get the blacksmith's anvil built, I also needed leather to build the bellows. Now, if you've been watching the series, you remember when I initially set up my workshops, I built a few leatherworking parts because I knew what was going to come next and I wanted to be prepared and set myself up for success. On a random side note, I have now fallen in love with smoking a pipe. The animation's a bit longer, but damn, he looks like Gandalf just puffing on that thing. The only other resource I needed to get my metalworking online was stone blocks. Now you can pick up large stones from the world, take them back, smash them into small stones, and then chisel those small stones into stone blocks. And with that in the bag, I get to work setting up my metal shop. First of all, I set up the furnace because that allows me to make the anvil that I need to build the forge. Now, I consider metalworking the change between the mid-game and the early game because it means for the first time in the game, I'm not on the back foot for weaponry. Now, the forge was being really awkward to get put in, and I did end up putting it a little bit further than I intended, but I came to actually prefer this positioning because it left some space at the back for shelving as well. The other really cool thing I mentioned earlier, it ties the progression together. The first thing I'm going to be smelting is small knives. Now these come out blunt, which means I can put them on my stone wheel and I can use that to level my maintenance. Then use the small knives to level my short blade, which is going to be my primary weapon type for the rest of the game now. And that's exactly what I did on day 50. I went out and I collected all the quarter metal bars that I'd already made by smelting the cars down, brought them home and made enough blades to equip a small legion. I kept down working on knives for the next few days until I hit metalworking level 5, at which point I was able to craft hunting knives. The only problem I had is I didn't have a ball hammer, so on the morning of day 54, I headed out to the local hardware store to see if I could get the hammer that I needed. And it'll probably come as no surprise that it didn't take too long to find one. Back at base, I went and checked on my farming and I was pretty excited to see that my radishes were nearly ready to harvest. I was quite keen to level up my agriculture level as it would mean I'd be able to go get some flower beds and make the place look a bit prettier. The next goal for me now that I was able to make hunting knives was actually to craft a modded item. One of the mods I'm using allows you to have a really cool little knife sheath attached to your back, but in order to craft that I'm going to need to level up my tailoring a little bit. Now I have heard of some more efficient ways to upgrade tailoring for build 42, folding up skirts and trousers, but I don't really know too much about that, so I went for the classic. I wanted to patch and remove some overalls, but to do that I would need a hell of a lot of patches. So I headed into town to the clothing store just to bring back as many clothes as I possibly could that I'd be able to rip up and make clothing patches out of. And that's exactly what I did. I got back to the base, I tore up clothes and I started adding and removing patches from my overalls. The overalls are great to do this with because they have so many zones on the body. It means you can put in minimal player input for maximum character progress. Following morning, I headed out to collect the components I needed to build the knife sheath. I'd require some leather strips, which I could get from leather jackets and ripping them up, and I needed some buckles as well, which I would get from a belt. Now, I know it's not much of a mod, just adding an extra hotbar slot, but I really do think it's a nice touch, and I'm glad they made it. I also this day spent a bit of time cooking up some fancy burgers. Now, I've said it before, and I'll say it again. I love the cooking in this game. It's really simple and easy to get into, but it gives you a lot of options and you know, you can live vicariously through your little zomboid. And what could be better to munch on in the apocalypse than some double beef bacon cheeseburgers with a topping of hot and barbecue sauce? This guy's living better than I do. After that, I decided to keep the fun going and I played some scratch cards. I haven't won anything big yet, but fingers crossed. The vibe did temper out a little bit though when I went to check on the farming. Despite being so close to being finished, all my plants had died. Thankfully, we got a bit more rain the same day, so I got to work planting some new stuff. And I even had a little bit of fertiliser left over, so I fertilised them as well just to give them that extra chance of survival and making it too. At this point in the month, a lot of the soft skills I wanted to get done had been levelled. I was at a really good place. And I decided it was time to go and focus on some combat skills. I spent the next few days over the north side of Irvington by the police station, so sit back, relax, enjoy the vibes, enjoy the violence. While I'm over at the storage lots, I do find a extra generator, so I take that straight down to the gas station. I know I do have a decent supply at base, but it can't hurt to have a backup line there ready. If you did enjoy that fight scene, I would suggest maybe checking out last week's episode. Went to Guns Unlimited and it was absolute chaos. As well as that, please do consider subscribing to the channel because I've got loads more content to come. On day 60, I head down to the Gigamart and I managed to crash my car so hard that I tore my groin open, which frankly just sounds horrific. The reason I went down to the Gigamart, I know I have all the good food already in my base, but it was to get the rotten food to put in the composters. After losing my last crops, it was really important to me that I made sure I did everything I could to make sure these crops made it through. At this point in the month, I'd basically done everything that I wanted to. The only thing I had left to do was getting a good condition car with all performance parts. And before I set out to do that though, I found a tragedy in the chicken coop. It was completely my own fault for not maintaining and cleaning it, and I was just grateful that it wasn't Lady Balls who died. The car I had in mind was the police car I'd seen at the station the previous days. Now when I went out to grab this, I didn't realise it was a sports car. I didn't actually realise that until I decided to check on the condition. So I did, even though I got the police car back, I did end up having to go find another car as well. I needed a standard grade car because I had my level 4 in mechanics. This would mean I could do every single job I needed to guaranteed. The main objective was to replace the tyre, suspension and brakes with performance grade parts which had more than 80% health. The way I did this was just driving around town, checking cars, grabbing all the components I needed, then I brought them back to my base and I just did the work safely in a garage. And that is about it for this week's episode. If you have made it this far, go ahead, smash that like button. Get active in the comment section. I love hearing where you guys are watching from. Knowing that I've gone international, even though YouTube is a worldwide platform, I don't know, I get a real buzz off it, hearing where everyone's watching from. I will also assume if you've made it this far in the episode, you actually appreciate the content and what I'm doing here. So I've got a little treat for you. This Friday, the 28th, we are launching our community server. Now, we've got a big game plan for what we're going to do on this. We're going to build an Alexandria-style settlement where everybody has their own house and we have some big walls around it. We're going to use that to then film a Siege of Alexandria community event, which is going to be awesome. So if you guys like the sound of that, go ahead, join the Discord. All the server information is going to be in there, and it'll be great to actually get to play with you guys and interact with you beyond just a comment. Other than that, thanks for watching. I have enjoyed making this episode, even though it took a little bit longer than I expected. For some reason, I seem to think I'd be able to get 28 hours gameplay into a 20-minute video and it'd be nice and quick to edit. This wasn't the case. However, I did get there in the end. So thanks for the patience, thanks for sticking around, and I will see you guys next time. Take care now.